So lovely coming back again to continue the conversation, Daithí. And this time we're looking at blog 5, Navigating the New Frontier, the transformative role of AI in parental engagement and education. Now, to my mind, this week's topic is both profound and timely, if not alarming, as we try to capture the nuanced shifts in parental roles, responsibilities, and potential challenges. Now, we're framing it, we're emphasizing human agency and intentionality. We're emphasizing, highlighting the collaboration over replacement. We're focusing on AI as a tool, not as substitute for human relationships. And we're exploring the symbiotic potential of human AI educational partnerships, which to me sounds alarm bells. And anyone who's a parent out there and an educator needs to sit up and needs to start getting rid of the fear of AI in their own minds and start tackling this elephant in the room. Can you describe the elephant in the room this week, Daithí?
First of all, Lisa, great to be back in the THC and on the Handshake again at this moment. My little background, which I keep changing nearly every week, is all about it. We before spoke about the Luke Skywalker and the Darth Vader effect of AI.
Mm-hmm.
And the elephant in the room always is AI Singularity. It's not just AI. We've referred in all the other podcasts that AI being like sweets in a sweet shop.
Sure.
Nothing wrong with a couple of sweets. Eat too much, it leads to diabetes. The elephant in the room right now is this. And because people have maybe listened to the other blogs, but if not, singularity is when humanity and AI reach a stage where AI has that capacity to now surpass the human being and its human capacity and capability. The elephant in the room here is that I think there are very few people anywhere on this planet right now who will not acknowledge that parents are the primary educators of their children.
Sure.
Even in Ireland, we talk about the teacher is in loco, parentis.
Of course.
And the fact is, the parents are. AI has been with us for over 50 years, but the acceleration of evolution, of revolution of AI in the last 18 to 24 months has been exponentially significant, disruptively disruptive. So the elephant in this room is children nowadays, particularly, I suppose, Gen Alpha. They don't know what life is without screen. And everything on their screen is, whether we like it or not, driven by algorithms, by coding, i.e. driven by AI. Many of the parents are, number one, not even aware of the fact that these screens, even though we have huge programs in Ireland and all over the world, and we look at the UNESCO, we look at the OECD, we look at Ireland's even the policies that we have here, we look at the African nations, continental policies and the EU AI Act. But most parents don't have the time to read these. And therefore, the elephant in the room is this huge Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker capacity of what their role is or isn't in their child's education today, which is driven, whether we like it or not, by, I'm going to get funny here for a moment and I won't be funny, during that time of period called COVID. And you say, where did you hear that? Heard it on the TikTok. Heard it on the TikTok. Yes. Where did you get that bit of information? Got it on the TikTok. Where did you get that? I got it on the Insta. Where do people, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, get a lot of their information today? They get it on the TikTok, on the news. And we know that the AI capacity is to also bring out massive amount of fake news, false news. Parents need to be in loco parentis. Parents, elephant in the room. Just to sum this up, I'm going to be shot here. I wonder how many parents out there actually know what is happening when it comes to the simplicity of AI tools and applications. Never mind about the singularity of AI. That's your elephant in the room. And look at the elephant I put into blog 5 and you'll see what I mean.
And I would add another few dimensions to what you're saying. take the phrase in loco parentis, and if we were to translate that, the teacher would be expected to act as a prudent parent would. And I would say to you that word prudence, it doesn't mean what we think it would mean anymore. Also, parents unintentionally attach a sophistication and an admiration to their children's ability to navigate technology, which may surpass their own. And that is the black hole they're falling into. And they're not acting responsibly. And you bring it a step further. Gen Z are at the point of having children themselves. They're digital natives. So they view things, they would view your opinion and mine probably as old hat traditional, and they view things differently to us. So there's a concoction of things going on at the same time that is culminating in what I would say sleepwalking into what's going to be a major crisis for humanity. So I'm just drawing listeners' attention to the last page of your blog. And I want you to hold this in mind. It's the implications and considerations. How do we achieve this? Is it all up to you and me, the parents of Gen Z, the leaders of tomorrow? You talk about enhanced responsibility, ethical navigation, adaptive parenting, and identity preservation. Hold those 4 points in mind, listeners, as we navigate the questions now that I will pose to Daithí to try to rattle the cages and try to get you interested in this major, major tsunami that's coming down the line for humanity. We're at a juncture where it's decisive now. So, Daithí, first question. How might we characterize the evolving role of parents in the parent-child educational dynamic in the age of singularity? So how would we characterize that evolving role?
At the worst scenario, I would say it is diminished agency. Because once we are happy to allow, and again, look at the elephant, look at the eyes of the elephant in blog 5, those massive, booming, burning eyes that are so piercing. And the elephant is challenging at us at a stampede level. And let's face it, I don't know if there's anyone alive that wants to stand in front of a stampeding elephant, but particularly when the eyes are laser. So the role of the parent is simple. Parents love their children. I think that there are very few who would not, even though I know we've had an awful lot of tragedies. And I acknowledge, and you acknowledge that, look, for everything we say, there are exceptions. But generally speaking, parents adore, love, will do anything for their children. In which case, this is one area with AI Singularity where it seems that we're happy to hand over the baby and throw out the baby with the bathwater and allow them to go into the screens. And basically, we seem to trust the fact that something that has the capacity to be a sweet, which is lovely to eat, or diabetes is looked upon in the same way. In other words, look at the picture behind me. And it's all about, if I move slightly to the side, it's all about how our brain perceives this. And our brains are being wired. And once you rewire the brain, we have the capacity to go into diminished agency, disempowerment of ourselves. And if you allow the elephant free in the room, diddly die. But if we are cognizant, conscious, as we talk about in Second You, if we're conscious of where we are from a meaningful, mindful, soulful, what the shamanic people call physical, psychological, spiritualo, if we reconnect with what we are in humanity, we take back ownership and agency. We're at a very critical time now. But Teresa, let's be honest. To a lot of parents who are out there killing themselves, working 2 parents, 2 jobs, when they come home, it's easier to put the screen in front of the child. And there are a lot of things in blog 5 that show how parents can manipulate, control, engage with this. So choice and options. We talk about this.
So the screen is co-parenting really as we stand. So the key dimensions of parental engagement in the AI educational ecosystem Parents who are listening, I'm just throwing out some key points to you. Emotional intelligence, the use of emotional intelligence is a counterbalance. Digital literacy and guidance is a must for you. Personalized learning support, ethical framework development, you need to get in there and shape it. Psychological safety and connection, right in there, maintaining deep human connections, creating safe emotional spaces for processing technological experiences, helping children interpret and contextualize AI-generated information, and protecting psychological well-being in a highly digitized environment. We're looking at collaborative learning ecosystems. We're looking at holistic development guardianship. We're looking at potential discussion points. How do parents become emotional technologists?
Mm-hmm.
What skills become crucial in an AI augmented educational landscape? How can human connection remain paramount? And strategies for maintaining psychological resilience. These are all questions, parents, that you need to start asking yourselves. You need to call back. I believe that parenting is it is the most important leadership role you'll ever play in life. Forget about leadership in the workplace. Parenting is the key. The hand that rocks the cradle. Hold on to that hand that rocks the cradle. Make sure it's you.
Nature and nurture, Teresa. Nature and nurture.
Absolutely.
But if there are parents out there, and I often say, and all these things I've written about in the blog, as you know, and that's why I don't get into them when we're having a discussion, because people need to read them if they wish. But I would say to any parent, if someone said to me, look, I haven't got time, summarize that, I'd go, okay, there is a fire in your house, an open fire. And the child is walking towards an open fire. And the child has just learned to walk. You are the parent and you say, excuse me, darling, would it be possible that you might turn around and not go in that direction? As it is quite possible you may be incinerated. Now, if you give me a parent, normally most parents will go.
Yes.
Now, I can tell you, AI Singularity, whether you like it or not, is an
inferno.
Yes, but it's also the beautiful heat from the fire, which can give you a sense of warmth and ease and love and comfort. But the thing is, and what you're saying, and it is possible, there may be parents out there who don't realize that that fire is the two sides of the Darth Vader Luke Skywalker. Your child could be incinerated in there, and you along with them, because of the capacity to mind melt, to influence the mind, to bring it from a place of ease to dis-ease, in that whole sense of engaging with what a lot of people are doing right now, utilizing AI as, and you said co-parenting. Again, I'm going to get shot here. I think sometimes there are parents out there who are co-parenting with AI as the main parent, i.e. the screen.
Sure, absolutely. I would agree with you. So I believe ethics is a central concern in AI integration and pending AI singularity in education. How would you and I, as educators, go about developing an ethical framework?
First of all, you've got to know what you're dealing with. And literally, and no one knows what they're dealing with really in AI, because, as I've said, the elephant is loose in the room. But the elephant is a chameleon. The elephant can be a bull, can be a snake, can be a mosquito. And the reality is that, so what we can do is this. If there are boundaries, and I would say to any parent listening out there right now, or any person listening to us, have you ever actually turned off the Wi-Fi on your teenage daughter, son, or child? Have you ever done that? If you have, then you know what World War III is. Now, the fact is, ethics begins from, first of all, creating spaces in which the humanity, the human side of us, as what makes us specially human, the consciousness of who we are, is something that we talk about as humans together to discuss. Ethics begins on going back to default point, i.e., human, Homo sapiens, going back to what we are. Now, once we do that and we speak about it, we've created a forum whereby we are removing the technology, digitization of communication to go back to the humanity, take the human from the human AIology. And then that's where ethics begins, because here's the issue. We can talk about ethics, but in some countries, ethics are slightly different to what it is in other places. But the reality is AI is binary. It's yes, no, north, south, east, west, up, down. But the ethical side is us as humans connecting. If we do that properly with the values, the core values of humanity, of what makes us special, then we are nurturing the agency, the ownership of what we perceive through our glasses to be AI. But so maybe going back to what people talked in the Bible, take the bloody log out of your own eye before you look at the speck in AI. Because AI, at the end of the day, is only a tool, a hammer we spoke about. And if it is a hammer, everything's a nail. But we are the ones controlling the fulcrum, the hammer. Go back to what makes us human. And then ethics comes in.
So summing it up, really, an ethical framework development plan would have to look at instilling human values and moral reasoning, teaching empathy, compassion, and complex social interactions, developing children's understanding of AI's role versus human potential, and creating ethical boundaries in technological interactions. And all of that is there it's there for the creation in order to assist parents at this critical point. But first of all, what we're trying to achieve is to get people's attention. We're trying to get people involved in this conversation. And perhaps the very fact that I am still speaking to you, Daithí, without a third party having come on board yet, shows us the fear factor, and the a fear of making a fool of oneself by not knowing enough about AI, etc. And we're not saying we know it all, but we're trying to start a conversation. So question 3 I put to you. When we think in terms of parents' role and the role of teachers in loco parentis, psychological safety and connection stand out as paramount. So how do we preserve that psychological safety and connection in the age of singularity? How do we define psychological safety in an AI-mediated world? What emotional skills become most crucial? And how can parents and teachers co-create safe technological landscape? Remember, the child is only in school for 6 hours of the day. And parents are the primary educators. And unfortunately, the boundaries between the responsibility of home and the responsibility of school and the responsibility of society have all blurred. And no matter what happens, the media seem to bring everything back to, well, education needs to be in there.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about this in the other blogs, and go back to the original point. Our role is #AI debate. I have said it, and I will say it a million times until the day comes when I'm out of this world. I know nothing. And I know that, and I mean that. But in looking at the future of disruption and AI singularity, the little that would learn, the information, the knowledge that is there, if one can even call it that, because it's ever evolving, as in revolution, is something that we're trying to open up a debate. And the reason why we haven't a third person here, again, to confirm, we have invited so many third people to come in, and people are afraid to come in to even share the stories. It's not that you need to know anything, it's to give a perspective so we can open the debate. But to answer your question, I want to now go to the Darth Vader side for a minute. You see him there? Yes. I am a parent. I have a child who is at a major crisis stage in his, her, or their life. They are finding it impossible to regulate themselves. They're at a major form of dis-ease. They are at that age where everything around them affects everything they do or think or are. And now, all of a sudden, I am capable with my AI because as a parent, I have a little implant similar to what would be in Parkinson's right now, and I can regulate my child's mood. I can regulate my child's capacity to be at ease. I can regulate my child's capacity to personalize his or their learning, and I can do so with my own thought process once I am in parentis, in the role of my parentis. In other words, AI Singularity gives me the capacity to be able to regulate everything that's to do with my family around me, because billions of permutations and combinations change the coding and the frequency of what I have in my head to be able to regulate how my child is. So actually,
Can I stop you there?
Of course,
Can I stop you there for a minute? There are some parents that I wouldn't entrust that to.
Well, I'm waiting for you to say that, but the bottom line is you asked me a question, and I'm now going out into the age of AI Singularity, which is, by the way, disrupting the disruptors, which is so revolutionary disruptive that I am now pushing out concepts of what I actually believe that in the age of AI Singularity, if and when AI reaches that stage, because it will be able to rewrite itself, it will be feasible for people and children to live to hundreds of years of age with the capacity of being able to regulate thought process. And where I acknowledge what you're saying, remember the old idea when the lunatics are in charge of the asylum?
Yes.
Now I acknowledge and accept, but that's not the question you asked me. You asked me to go right out there, so I decided I'd throw you a Scud missile right in there.
And when it gets outside the sphere of the parent into other maybe unethical hands, that's when humanity is in trouble. So let's take, for instance, now as a psychologist, I'm interested in this neurobiological foundation, understanding attachment and connection, the primacy of human emotional bonding. Think of the parent with a newborn baby in her arms, the neuroscience of attachment and safety, the biological imperative of emotional connection. You think of the oxytocin and cortisol as key relational regulators. I mean, parents underestimate their absolute value in the formation of the child from the get-go. Think of the psychological safety architecture key dimensions: emotional containment, creating predictable emotional landscapes, providing consistent relational anchors, developing emotional regulation skills, maintaining emotional availability. And every one of my points are pointing to the absolute indispensability of the handshake, the human-to-human connection. No AI, no technology can substitute for that. Would you agree?
I would agree totally. Recently, I watched a cat rearing her two kittens from the moment they're born.
Yeah.
And recently I saw the first kitten go up its first set of steps with the mother cat meowing away and watching carefully. There was, and now I'm going to get shot here, there was a non-catastrophic connection of emotional meowing between the cat and the kitten. And there was this sense of freedom to do what was necessary to learn ethically what would be right and wrong, going up and down steps or falling off and breaking your neck, giving the emotional support, cat emotional support there, and doing it in a manner which was amusing to allow this kitten to go up and down. And my heart was the one that was actually crossways in my throat, because I was going, oh, sweet mother, the cat's going to fall and break its neck. But that cat had taught this little kitten bit by bit, step by step, emotion, cat to kitten. So the human being
needs to hold on to that
human needs to know that we are a beautiful, messed up species. And the more we focus on being messed up, the more we convince ourselves in our minds that we are. But if we continue to understand that, once again, AI and that capacity singularity are but tools that can hashtag AI for good, hashtag AI for equity of opportunity, hashtag AI for humanity. In many ways, we can do this. I was on LinkedIn last night where some of my colleagues from Africa basically said, all of this is happening, none of you are talking to us, as if we're left behind. And I went, I responded and said, hold on a moment, you have an African continental policy on AI. Why are you so worried about feeling you're left out when you should be out there taking ownership and agency of what we are doing? The world needs Africa. It needs Africa. Africa does not need the world. The wealth of the world is dependent on what was, dare I say it, pillaged and is still being pillaged in Africa. Africa needs to stand up when it can and bring the people with it. Now, I know there's a million people shouting, get a life, dying. You're not looking at the reality. I'm looking at the reality that humanity's inhumanity to humanity is beyond comprehension.
Yeah. And
But
it's block.
The capacity to be beautifully, unconditionally in love, emotionally, psychologically, and in everything is also there. So choices and options. Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker. The thing is, in AI Singularity, where parents are concerned, do not give away your agency, your ownership, your responsibility. Just like that cat waited and watched and was ready. At the same time, in a human perspective, the hand that rocks the cradle is vitally important. But that hand could easily be an AI robot if you want it to be. So if you want to give it away, don't come back in a year or 2 or 5 years' time going, oh, woe is me. Don't
so get involved now.
Don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah. So you talked about emotional scaffolding. So teachers as psychological safety architects in loco parentis, they have the expanded role of emotional scaffolding, creating safe learning environments, providing emotional translation services, monitoring psychological well-being, and developing holistic support systems. And then, of course, there's a big emphasis on trauma-informed this, that, and the other these days. Trauma-informed technology integration, understanding potential psychological impacts, recognizing digital overwhelm signals, creating recovery and reset mechanisms, and developing adaptive support strategies. I am only just throwing out what could, we could do an entire talk on one of these points. Parents and teachers need to get in there and explore what's going on. How do we maintain human warmth in a digital ecosystem? What makes emotional connection irreplaceable? And can technology enhance rather than replace human bonds? So for a moment, I use the term psychological safety architect. Teachers have been called a lot of things, but now look at them in the guise of psychological safety architects in loco parentis. What's implied? The emotional scaffolding and the trauma-informed technology integration. And that's vital, to my mind, a vital foundation stone going forward. Are parents in general, Daithí, are they equipped to offer emotional scaffolding and trauma-informed technology integration, or to continue or extend the work of the teacher in the classroom during the day once the child is back home?
Simple answer I will give you is yes. But, and now and. Good but and. The fact of the matter is that how many people were trained or ever taught to be parents?
That's it. That's true.
I go back to my cat. My kitten was taught how to go up and down steps and was taught how to feed themselves, how to meow to get fed by others, and how to look up as humans and go, no, please feed me, lovely. Now, how many people in the world have ever actually been trained to be parents? You're the psychologist.
Yeah, well, unless they're out of their own motivation do a parenting course.
Yes.
It's left to chance. I mean, anybody can have a child.
Yeah. And the fact is, and I know people have said this before, the reality is that when it comes down to probably the most important role on this earth, and I don't mean as in having a child. Parent can be anyone. It can be a sister, a brother, an aunt. You are parenting someone. So it's not just, I'm not just giving the figurative idea of the humanity of having children. Parenting in that sense. It is something that each of us has and has deeply embedded in us the capacity to learn how to do. But first of all, we have to ask ourselves, who are we and what are we, and have the confidence to be able to put that in place. Because you get 10 parents and one will say, excuse me, I believe in parenting by letting the child do what they want to do. And I love that picture where the child is full of muck and full of dirt, and it said, this was my first experience with my first learning because I learned how to play, which is the socialization of that. Some parents will put the child under the thumb and go, you will learn nothing that I want, that you're not going to teach you. And some will actually brainwash them. So the fact is, resilience, when we're talking about resilience, when we're talking about trauma, and we're talking about trauma-informed practice and dealing with trauma and dealing with that sense of informed parenting, I think we need to go back, and we've talked about this all over the world in many different curricula. Surely there should be something in the curriculum that is what it is to be a parent, but not as in a parent as in a mammy daddy, or it can be a mixed couple. It is what it is to be able to parent. And actually, you are in loco parentis, so quo vadis. It's like I give keynotes sometimes, and I get a person running up to this huge big brick wall. I've spoken about it before, and they say, what's up, doc? Like, what's on the other side of the wall? Well, unless you get over there, you don't know. But the fact is, sometimes you have to blow up that wall. So we need to go back to the idea again, Lisa, and I would say this, in the handshake, we need to go back to who we are and what we are so that we can understand what it is that we can do. And we need to have, from a teacher's perspective, because everyone puts the responsibility on education, but because the parents are the primary educators, we need to look at this as a societal issue, because AI does not have emotional intelligence. AI does not understand the nuances of humanity. AI doesn't understand, Teresa, would you like a cup of tea now, Teresa? AI doesn't understand nudden olach. AI understands, again, left, right, up, down, in, out, 0, 1, binary.
Program to do.
And we're programming it. So in the age of singularity, imagine it starts to program itself. We are therefore the bloody problem on this planet, because we're the ones, sadly, who are starving one another, killing one another, annihilating one another, treating one another in many cases as less than human, as oh my God, I don't even want to go there. But imagine that you had a perfect AI singularity parent. They would go, that's right, that's wrong, boom.
No middle ground. So the handshake idea, that core philosophical premise really is psychological safety emerges not from controlling technology, but from deepening human connection, maintaining emotional availability, and creating adaptive, flexible, relational spaces. Yeah?
And the song, Teresa, before you go on, and we're not going to pay money for the song. We're only human after all. Don't put the blame on us. Well, actually, do you know what? Put the bloody blame on us if we don't get up, because the elephant is in the room and we are ignoring this elephant. The diabetes of what AI Singularity can and may well deliver or revolve into, as opposed to just us being there as human beings, enjoying the sweets if we choose.
I know. So I suppose the recommended hierarchy of things would be awareness, education, practice, integration, and transformation.
Communication, collaboration, us together, planning together as a species. Because there is no planet B. And right now, if you don't mind me so, Teresa, if you don't mind me saying so, we're not doing a bloody good job in planet A. So, I mean, now we're talking about AI singularity. Maybe this is the other elephant in the room that no one wants to talk about. You know what? Some people say ignore. Some people say if you ignore it enough, it'll go away.
Yeah, I would say to you, we're at a key juncture in on a global level. As I said in one of our chats to date, never before have there been so many singular billionaires on planet Earth. With sadly, we equate monetary prowess with political power and infiltration of political systems. And when that happens, we're in trouble as a species if it goes awry, it goes wrong for us. So Daithí, you quote Kurzweil and Davidson 2024, citing the rapid acceleration of AI capabilities signals a paradigm shift where traditional models of parental engagement may no longer suffice. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Again, Gen Z are so and will be so tuned in to what they believe to be the reality of society, i.e. that which is shown them on the screen, or that which will be transmitted to them, or that which they will see, and that the fact of the matter is that I believe we will come to a stage where we as human beings in the age of singularity will be unable, incapable of keeping up with the speed of change, the speed of revolution, of opportunities and what is presented to our children. And therefore, our traditional role of parenting in the handshake no longer will suffice, because the handshake will be too slow, because everything will be happening at such an acceleration. And that's where I mentioned earlier, the parent has the capacity through its own AI treatment to be able to bypass, to accelerate, to see what's coming down the road, and to be able to intervene. Or indeed, putting it very simply, the AI parent who may be there, the robotic AI parent who's tuned into what our children are accessing, is able to filter that so that it does not become overwhelming. In other words, the human species parent in the age of AI singularity quite possibly may be inadequate to protect the humanity of our children, because we will not be fast enough, quick enough, and our emotional intelligence will have nothing to do with 0 and 1 binary when they're being bombarded by boom.
And it's that pacing that it is through that pacing that the theft will occur.
I think the obliteration of the handshake or humanity may well occur.
So the AI-driven tools, these tools offer unprecedented insights into students' performance, learning habits, and even emotional well-being. So for instance, you have AI learning analytics. Parents now have access to real-time data on their child's academic progress, what you were speaking about there. AI-powered communication. AI can facilitate more dynamic interactions between schools and parents through personalized notifications, automated updates, and even multilingual translation capabilities, breaking down barriers to engagement for non-native speakers. And then you have ethical concerns and human oversight. It's all about the pace, the timing, and the human's inability or unwillingness to actually get involved. That's a key juncture now where they can keep a rein on it.
Wow. I was reading in the newspaper in the last couple of weeks, some parents were trying to take a legal case against a school because the school wasn't telling them what their child was doing every single day. I mean, what the hell do they think teachers are doing in there? Do they want teachers to become monkeys who just keep throwing out nuts at parents? The fact of the matter is that if you take, there are 2 wonderful companies in Ireland right now that I'm aware of, and I'm sure there are many. One would be iClass, and the other would be Compass Education, whereby schools can utilize these apps, whereby the parents can literally have synchronous communication on all levels of all the children and what they're doing right now in school, and will give them that capacity. We're not even going to go into the fact of how some parents may or may not perceive that. But if you take the situation of your child in a personalized intelligent tutoring, like Spock that we spoke about in blog 2, the new evolving roles of parents and students, or indeed the UNESCO teacher and student competences in the other blogs that we've spoken about, or even the OECD. If you get to a situation where the students can maximize their interaction, even down to the idea of assessment. And what is assessment? Again, the fish going up the tree or the elephant swimming in the pool. The fact is that AI can and is personalizing assessment models so that that child can be the genius that each child is. But the problem here, Teresa, is systems want the parents to recognize that the only way Success is perceived in education is through the baccalaureate, the GCSE, the leaving certificate, the final examinations. After 13 years of school, the child, still sadly around the world, is regurgitating within 2 or 3 hours something that was supposed to be knowledge, when in reality it's just regurgitating information. And how many businesses, and we're dealing with this in blog 7, how many businesses will say, yes, when you come out of your university or your training or your VET, then come to us and we will now show you what the real world is about. In other words, theory versus practice. So there's this huge dichotomy. There's this huge split at the moment, like the Darth Vader Luke Skywalker, between what assessment actually is and how AI can personalize this. But we in society have to realize that our personalization of assessment is something that is to build a child, to give them and empower them, to give them the agency to be the best they can be. But sadly, parents who come from a different generation will keep putting their perceptions on, well, if you don't do well in the GCSE or baccalaureate or leaving cert, sure, you're a failure. You're finished. You're not good enough. And the Taoiseach we had, the Prime Minister in Ireland, Simon Harris, did go and develop a huge system of different pathways. And indeed, many of our colleges of technology have become now universities. People will argue, is that a good or a bad thing? But in many ways, it has tried to change a system which for hundreds of years in most countries is a verbal vomit system of assessment.
Memorization and throwing it out and then forgetting it. Yeah. So coming to, you're moving beyond augmentation towards transformation in your blog. But what about the prospect of AI taking a central role in redefining the parent-child dynamics? You cite Martinez and Lee in 2024 paper regarding the convergence of neural interface technologies, predictive modeling, and emotional synchronization tools, which could blur the lines between human and artificial intelligence, raising critical ethical and philosophical questions about the essence of parenting. Is this not a stark prospect, particularly in light of the present fact that parents are not upskilling in the area of AI, and they lack an understanding of the possibilities of the blurring of the lines between human and artificial intelligence? Are we not in a very, very stark position?
I spoke about it earlier in our conversation about the capacity of a parent to be able to regulate how their child is or isn't feeling, regulate the capacity, their capacity to learn, to personalize their learning through thought process. People think that's impossible. And I would say, look at the people with Parkinson's right now that with a switch of a button can stop. And that's all being done through a neural interface. Now imagine we have a neural interface that's on an RFID or beyond capacity, whereby I can transmit to another human being there and then with billions of permutations of changing frequencies. So no two frequencies will connect or will be the same, so no one can hack them. And I can actually do this. Now, if I'm in the capacity to do that, then is that a possibility? I'm afraid it's already a reality in certain things. When a person who's broken their spine can go into an exoskeleton right now and can actually walk again with that because the neural paths are talking to one another. And we're kind of going, people are saying, Teresa, oh, that's not possible. I'm going, open your bloody eyes. It's happening.
It's happening already. Right, that's the good use. That is the ethical use of AI. Yes. The convergence of advanced technologies such as neural interfaces, predictive modeling, and emotional synchronization tools introduces a scenario where AI might become a mediator or even a co-participant in parenting. Now, to a parent listening to us, they might think this is unthinkable. They're off the wall. It's the blurring of the boundaries. Emotional synchronization tools might even foster a shared emotional intelligence between the child, the parent, and an AI system, making the AI a deeply integrated presence in family life.
Ta-da.
Yeah.
I mean, why don't you just take over writing the blogs for me at this stage of the game? But I will say this. People have said to me this is impossible, and people sometimes call me a total lunatic. And I say to them, okay, how many young children are going into preschool right now talking with a certain American accent? And they're talking like this. And I'm saying, where do you think they get that accent from? And they kind of go, we don't know. I'd say, well, if I'm watching cartoons all day on a screen, I'm going, and I hear the different people speaking with different accents like this, and I hear them speaking, and the child automatically hears these tones. So when they start to speak and formulate their language, they're utilizing what they're hearing. So the effect of accents in simple things like cartoons can and are affecting the manner in which our children are speaking to one another and inside in preschool and school. And I don't know if people are even acknowledging this. That's not coming because they're just picking up language. It's becoming because there is an interface between a simple screen and a person. Now imagine if that was a neural interface.
That's, totally invasive.
Now, don't forget the Darth Vader side of this one is that the neural interface means that we can have, and I'm going to bring this up, and I need to bring this up. Why do you think Hitler Youth were Hitler Youth? They were brainwashed.
Brainwashed, absolutely.
So has AI Singularity, if it is used in the Darth Vader mode of the diabetes, of the sweet shop, of the elephant in the room, has it got that capacity? Yes.
Shaping a whole generation. It's shaping the generation. It's shaping the leaders of tomorrow. It's shaping the world of tomorrow, the workers of tomorrow. So the current lack of upskilling among parents and educators is a major concern. What is the pathway forward, I ask?
Well, the schools, Trace, the schools at the moment, I know, and my apologies, schools at the moment are doing the best they can with the likes of WebWise. I know the Irish government and others are bringing them out. I know that in places like Malmö in Sweden, I know that many of the various countries with whom we have the privilege through the education centres of doing European projects have opportunities for parents to come into the schools to see this. The thing is, many parents are overburdened, overwhelmed, and can't come in to do this. But I would say to any parent listening right now, if the opportunity is given to you to go into your school environment, to understand what the children are doing, to keep them in that safe environment, way beyond physical, psychological, and emotional, go and do it. My apologies, Teresa. I just say go for it.
That takes me to my next question about integrating classical and emerging paradigms. So considering your analysis, which combines Epstein's 2019 framework of parental involvement with technological affordances theory and emerging theories of educational singularity, how might exponential advancements in AI reshape the role and responsibilities of parents in education? I think you hit on it already.
I did. All I would say is educate yourself first. Be part of the initiatives that are going out there. If you get a bit of time, even if you're on your way to work, listen to certain podcasts to hear what is happening out there. Inform yourself through the correct sources. Know what's there, and then be the parent that you are. Don't hand over the responsibility. Every parent is a most beautiful human being. Don't ever feel, as most parents do, I think we all felt it, that we're failing. We're learning. But in the process of learning, just like the cat and the kittens, we are the species to basically be able to take care of the ownership of our own resilience, of our own agency, of our own capacity to be the handshake.
So to have the courage to expand the dimensions of parental involvement. Epstein's 6 dimensions of parental involvement I found interesting. Parenting, communicating, volunteering, learning at home, decision-making, and community collaboration. And they could be redefined: parenting, communicating, and learning at home, and getting involved in decision-making, right? But which brings me on now to the next question I've lined up for you. Can you update me on specific case studies that illuminate the combination of paradigms towards a new era of parenting?
See, this is the problem. The ones that I quote in the blogs, even in blog number 5, various little studies are being done in different places. So, for example, if I take from the idea of take it beyond parenting, we do know right now from the work that's been done on case studies all over the world, and indeed we've looked at case studies that have not worked in blogs 4 and 5, or 3, 4, and 5, so that we can learn from them. From a parenting perspective, there really are not many actual qualitative and quantitative research pieces that are giving us the data that are relevant to inform us, but there are some. But one thing we do know is when we look at what's happening in certain universities around the world, and we look at control versus the other type of grouping, and
Sure.
indeed we're in a project in AI for EDU, AI number 4, EDU,
Yes.
where we're piloting at the moment in schools in Ireland and all over Europe. And we are actually utilizing personalized intelligent tutoring in teacher-made and study buddy to show that when the right environment of the handshake of the human AIology is put in, that you can have up to 36 to 40% improvement in any child's capacity to show that he or she is really performing at the best that they are, not can be, are, just by integrating AI in a manner that synchronizes with, that basically synopsizes with, that synthesizes and brings the child to that place of ease. Now, if that's true, then we can replicate that where parents are concerned, and these studies can show if we can bring parents to a place of parenting in the age of AI singularity, that the exponential improvement in their capacity to be the handshake, the parent, more than likely quid pro quo will be of a similar significant percentage, I won't say improvement, but capacity to be the agent of ownership, to be there to ethically guide.
In my research now, I came across a very interesting study, Literacy Boost by Save the Children, implemented across 7 countries. And I was amazed at the countries that were involved: Ethiopia, Malawi, Nepal, Pakistan, Zimbabwe, Bangladesh, and Mozambique.
Yes.
This program demonstrated how AI-enhanced data analysis can improve literacy outcomes by assessing students regularly and involving parents in community-based learning activities. And such programs illustrate the potential of combining technological affordances with community action to enhance learning environments. You have Francis Mallet de Parent program. There's another one I came across, Pratham's in India ML Champ program. There's a load of them there. AI-driven personalization in education 4.0, case studies from the World Economic Forum highlight AI's ability to personalize learning experiences, streamline administrative tasks, and involve parents as informed stakeholders in their children's education. But were ethical concerns addressed in these initiatives? That was one question that I went after in looking at these systems. And with Literacy Boost, for instance, equity and inclusion was looked at, and privacy and data use was very much to the fore. Parental engagement was very much to the fore, and avoiding dependency, which was a refreshing one. The initiative emphasized capacity building within communities, aiming to avoid dependency on external resources. And by training local facilitators and encouraging community-based solutions, it sought to empower participants rather than imposing external models. So I thought that was interesting. So coming to Singularity, a transformational lens, it's 2.2 on your blog. You cite Weng's 2023 exploration of technological singularity, in which it is proposed a new framework for examining parental engagement in education. This lens anticipates disruptive shifts where human and AI collaboration in parenting evolves from a complementary to a symbiotic dynamic. This is the one that parents must sit up and listen to. Is this healthy, safe, and not entirely intrusive? Experimental, insofar as its effects are immeasurable, and disruptive in the negative sense. What do you think, Daithí? It's such new ground.
It is such new ground, but everything we've been talking about in such new ground, first thing is it can be very fearful for people, because when I looked at the evolution of AI in parenting, and particularly when I put in that figure 3, because and by the way, I got AI to draw me that figure 3 as well.
Yeah.
We're talking about the evolution of AI in parenting. So we're talking about the emotional support.
Sure.
And we're talking about then the enhanced decision making. And then we're talking about the personalized parenting as being a circular thing, all interconnected, all in their own way. But the fact of the matter is that if you think about it, everything we're talking about is a hammer and a nail. Everything we're talking about is the sweet and the diabetes. Everything we're talking about is the yin and the yang. So because it's so out there and because we're talking about something which is so disruptive, and if you read about AI Singularity, many people out there don't even know or didn't even want to know about it. Everything you said, I agree with totally. You could talk to me right now and say, I want your strong opinion on it. I will go, how can I have a strong opinion on it when you're asking me to actually project myself so far into the near future?
Yes.
This
Yes.
near because of the speed at which is, forget about Moore's law and all of this stuff with technology in the past. My God, that's gone out the door. We've gone from horsepower to Model T Ford up to Formula One fusion cars and Formula E right now in a matter of no time at all. Everything we're talking about with the idea of parenting, if you sit down and thought about what the possibilities for Darth Vader are, you basically would decide I'll never have a child in my life.
I
Or-
think that word is symbiotic relationship is concerning because it raises
Yeah.
critical questions about safety, ethical implications, and the long-term effects. So if you think of the health and safety concerns, you're thinking about the psychological impact, the data privacy risks. You think of the ethical intrusiveness. You're thinking about parental autonomy, child agency. You're thinking of think about the experimental and immeasurable effect. That's huge. And the disruption, positive versus negative. The positive, AI has the potential to democratize access to educational resources, offer personalized developmental support, and alleviate parenting burdens. But the negative, the dependence on AI might deepen inequalities if access to advanced systems is limited to more affluent families, creating a digital divide. It might also desensitize families to the irreplaceable nuances of human interaction. So
that's why in each blog, Teresa, I put in the counter argument.
Of course.
Because the reason you asked me a question a minute ago, I know nothing. But in writing about this, we talking about it, by causing this debate and by putting in a counter argument, we're not coming out saying an ironing board is an ironing board only for ironing clothes on an ironing board. Well, actually, an ironing board could be a ladder. If you don't have a ladder, to stand up and paint the ceiling. Actually, an ironing board could actually be something that you jump on and you could impale yourself. But the thing is, it's our perception. This is what we're talking about now in AI Singularity. That we're talking about the elephant in the room, the AI debate that's going to come down the road. And it is happening right now. And we're trying to discuss here. And that's why we don't have a third person on. It's as if someone was worried about their reputation or something. So challenge from Daithí and from Teresa is, come on and talk to us. Actually, we don't care. We just need you to share the stories of an opinion, because there is no definite answer here, except there is a bloody elephant in the room, and the elephant is going everything from roaring like a lion to bellowing like a flipping cow to going like a bull to neighing and everything, because it is a chameleon. But it is a chameleon that if we ignore, now I'm going to watch this, you watching me?
Yes.
If we ignore this, you watching me?
That's it. It's gone.
Boom.
Yeah. So in mitigating the risks, we need ethical oversight. We need parental education. I would say we need educators, expanded education as well. And we need human-centric design. AI systems should augment, not replace, the parent-child relationship, emphasizing human touch points. So, Daithí, for the benefit of our listeners, could you speak a little about the following, and do they require implants, microchipping, or headsets? Neural enhanced communication, predictive life path optimization, transhuman educational adaptations. So what are we looking at? Are we looking at putting on a headband? Are we looking at saying, oh, for God's sake, it'll be far easier if we just put an implant in there? and you wouldn't have to bother with these headsets that are always getting lost and maybe are unhygienic, etc., etc. Where are we heading with all of this?
Film I used to enjoy watching was Judge Dredd with Arnold, with what's his name, Rambo, and Sylvester Stallone, where he meets this lovely lady and they put on a headset and they experience the joy of humanity between them on a headset. And I remember him being brought out of cryostasis going, I'm going to use my language seriously. Now, people who haven't seen that, when they look at the film, they will understand. Years ago, Teresa, when you had an old dog, the dog would run down the road and you go, come here, Skippy, and the dog would run up. And then when people started to steal dogs, you used to put a collar on the dog, and the dog had a name called Skippy. And now what did they do with dogs? They put in a microchip. So when the dog is getting lost, they're able to scan the chip in a vet. Now,
and I said, one step animal, second step human. Go on.
That's it. So the honest answer that I can give you is this. At this moment in time, we can put on headsets in an AI VR or AR, augmented reality, and we can experience everything. If you go to a 6D cinema, excuse me, what's a 6D? Before you just sit down and you're going to go, can I have the popcorn and be watching the cinema? Now you can actually go in recliner seats and you can get all the seats to move with all the sprays. So we're talking about enhancing the experience. The easiest way, if I was in charge of the world of a new utopia and I wanted to control the world, every time a child is born, boom, put in an implant. And once the implant is in there, the implants can talk to one another and one can control the whole darn thing because of neural implants. Now, that would be the easiest way to do it. So how can it be done? I don't know because I can't see it. But right now, at this moment, I can put on a headset. And I don't know if any of you watch this. Go on and see people playing golf inside the room when they have these pieces or headsets and they have them all together. And then someone throws something and puts the thing through the screen on the television because they get scared. Everything you've talked about is a possibility and a probability, and actually is there right now with an AI, AR, VR. And there's a lovely company in Ireland, shall we say, which is Air Immersive. And Air Immersive has lots of companies working with it. And they're showing the capacity for AR and VR to actually enhance the whole aspect of EdTech and business and economics out there.
Yes.
But for me, everything you talk about is a possibility. But if I project myself right out into the future, people say we're not our thoughts. But imagine if our thoughts were that powerful that we could actually transmit that thought into an actionable thing. In other words,
and we become what we think, but
we can control. So all of this is real possibility with parents.
Have you ever put on one of those headsets? I have had the recent experience of having a headset on, and amazingly, all actions I was instructed to do, etc., I went with the left hand. Now, I was a lefty, but my mum changed me to right before I went to school because she was saving me the bother of having it knocked out of me in her theory. But it's amazing how the left came out in me. But when I took off the headset after half an hour and was heading out, I felt a little drunk. And my daughter said, you do know, she said, I read an article where they said the difference between the male and the female center of gravity is different to the male, and that it has a more adverse effect on the female at the minute than the male, which was an interesting observation. But I did a bit of research on this neural enhanced communication. It refers to systems that integrate human neural signals with technology to enable direct and seamless interaction between individuals or devices. And it could include brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, allowing user to control devices through thought, or real-time language translation, or telepathic-like communication by transmitting neural data. So what technology is needed? I was really wondering, I wanted to update myself on this. So some implementations may require headsets with EEG sensors or implants like Elon Musk's Neuralink, emphasis on Elon Musk and Neuralink, which involve invasive procedures. However, less invasive options like external headbands or AR glasses are also being explored. Then you look at predictive life path optimization. The concept uses AI and predictive analytics to map out optimal educational, career, and life paths based on a person's cognitive and behavioral data. So AI models could analyze a child's aptitude, preferences, and external opportunities to offer tailored recommendations, minimizing trial and error in decision making. So what technology would I need for that? Well, typically data collection relies on wearables, the Internet of Things devices, or digital footprints. Implants or BCIs could enhance this by continuously monitoring neural activity to redefine predictions, but these are not a necessity. And finally, coming to the transhuman educational adaptations. Educators sit up. This refers to leveraging AI and neural technology to push human learning capabilities beyond natural limits. Examples include AI-driven tutoring systems that adapt in real time to neural feedback from students. Implantable devices or BCIs enhancing memory, processing speeds, and skill acquisition. For example, uploading knowledge, etc. And the technology needed for this is non-invasive tools like AR and VR headsets, and it could suffice for early interactions or early iterations. More advanced forms may require neural implants for deeper integration and faster data exchange. You see where I'm going with this? What are the ethical considerations with all of this? All these technologies raise ethical questions around consent, privacy, and equity, especially if invasive technologies like implants become prerequisites for access to educational or professional advantages. And we all know from our experience of COVID and our experience of the anybody who had an opinion that didn't fit in at the time, they were told they were basically conspiracy theorists. Anybody who was refusing to take their vaccination was really gaslit and out there. So what will happen when it becomes the new mod thing to have an implant and you decide, no, I don't want it? These concepts demonstrate the potential for extraordinary human enhancement, but demand careful consideration of societal, ethical, and psychological impacts before widespread adoption. So the more asleep we are and the more we sleepwalk into these scenarios, the more we're giving over our power. Yeah?
Well, if you look at BCIs, people say, give me a concept. I say, remember the film Avatar? Yes. The human beings were moved to the other planet. They were put into the major, we call them something like, even you want to call it Optimus Prime idea. They were put into the robots. So if the human being went into this massive robot, and through the capacity to interface with the robot, it was able to do a billion different things that humanity could not do. So the little soldiers in Avatar, that lovely film Avatar 1 and 2, were put in. So that's a BCI capacity there. But take it a step further, everything you've said. By the way, Teresa, thank you for outlining the elephant in the room. And the fact is, and that elephant, as you've just now put down, quite simply, doesn't even know how to spell the word ethical, never mind even understand it. Because
I'm just educating myself as I go on this.
Yes,
just fascinating. And this is alarming.
But this is what I'm talking about in all the blogs. And that's why people, in many cases, I'm sad to say, are not engaging, because in many ways, and I do not compare myself again in any way, it is very important. When Orwell wrote the book 1984, people thought, how they all laughed.
I'm reading it at the moment.
1984, listen to me, that was already passed out in 1974. Never mind about Hotel California in 1969. I mean, but the reality is, what we're doing right now is we're taking something which is actually happening in real time at this moment, and we're looking at the actual singularity of what that AI has the potential to do. And the role that we as human beings in that handshake can do in the human AI-ology that I've spoken about and coined so often. People talked about STEM and STEAM education. I came up with the concept in 2019 of streams education, 21st century multiliteracies, which is what we just spoke about, the personalized intelligent tutoring. And the S, the sustainability. But the STEM people go, excuse me, you violated science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And then we threw in the A for being the artistic side of creativity, which some people called arty-farty. And now we threw in the R of 21st century literacies, multiliteracies with sustainability. And people are saying, you're talking about something that doesn't exist in the conspiracy of planet, because the planet has always regulated itself, which it has. So all I can say is, in this particular blog with parents, looking at the picture behind me as I move back. That is the brain. And either side of the brain that you spoke about, left and right, or BCI, or the capacity of humans to go into an AI or an AR environment, these are all happening right now. And we're looking upon them as games. Some people would even say the idea of gamification. I don't like gamification because gamification is not game-based learning. Game-based learning is like, someone said to me, what's a game? I said, a game has three things. But one of the most important things every game has is bloody rules. And every game has a beginning and an end. And every game has to have some form of players. There are three things that are common to all games. If you give me a game that doesn't have rules, it's not a game.
So what do you call this?
Well, what I call this at the moment is, I call it the steroidal injection of the possibility of Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker going out of total control, and the elephant multiplies at such a pace that is not an elephant in the room, but it is a stampede that no human being can. I don't care who you are, unless of course you're robotic at this moment, which is existing. But if I put any human being in front of a stampede of elephants, then the chances of its survival are what? Nil. So up to us.
I have a list of questions here that I want you, the listeners, particularly if your parents or educators, listen. Answer these questions for yourself now. Should we go down those routes? Are we not only given over control over parenting, but changing what it actually means to be human forever? Is this wise when there is so much room for unethical manipulation of the human at the hands of capitalists and those seeking to control humanity? What will happen to organic, God-given individuality, to creativity, to agency, and to control over one's life and one's destiny if we remain asleep as we are now? Will we simply be rendered compliant zombies, unable to think for ourselves? Finally, ultimately, is this real advancement, or is it simply dangerous? Without the device or implant, the human will be unable to function or indeed survive. Stark, isn't it?
It's stark, and welcome to Blog 5 and to the podcast, because they're all the questions that I think, and thank you for asking those. And let us never say that we didn't at least open this Pandora's box. But remember, Pandora's box has nice little sweets in it too if we look for it. It has the capacity to be a Luke Skywalker. It has the capacity for good. It has the capacity to bring so much into this world that can right so many wrongs. But again, don't blame the AI and don't blame the singularity.
And I'm conscious of time, etc. here now, but you talk about the key domains of AI impact. And I'm asking, are modern day parents aware that with AI advancement, which they perceive as beneficial for their children, there comes a trade-off between natural parenting and AI-led educational guidance, and even will take it further, AI co-parenting? I don't believe that parents are aware of this. And in actual fact, speaking with the Gen Z at the weekend, the reply was, that won't happen in our time. It's happening already. So the question of technological trust has been written about recently by the World Economic Forum. How can parents trust in AI, since it is an unknown entity with boundless possibilities, both bad and good, and the whole question of ethics hasn't even been ironed out yet? Do you like to stab that one?
The only way you can trust anything is to know what you are talking about. And to know me is to love me. I know that song used to be the idea of, oh, thank God, it wasn't my mentor, whatever that song is. But to know me is to love me. And the fact is, that's it. Unless you actually know what you're talking about, then you can't understand what you're doing. So it all comes back to knowledge, not information. You mentioned there about the idea of uploading knowledge. AI can upload information, and through learning and teaching itself, and by you training it, It can turn that information into more information, but knowledge is what the human being can do with information. So again, I would say the only answer I can give is this. If we hand away our advocacy, our agency, our ownership of what we need to know about the concept of humanity dealing with AI, then you know what? Don't blame the messenger and don't shoot them. So we have to, first of all, get in there. Like I said before with you, get into the schools, get into the children, see what they're watching, look at what they're learning. And if people say we're talking rubbish, I would say to any human being, go to a shopping centre right now, sit down at the middle of the shopping centre, watch how many buggies pass you, and tell me how many of those babies in those buggies don't have a screen in front of them. I rest my case, Your Honour.
Now, I probably incense any of the transhumanists who might stumble on this podcast. I claim that transhumanism has no regard for individual uniqueness, human sanctity, or human self-actualization. Rather, it insidiously achieves total human surrender. Is there not a need to call for ethical transhumanism?
Well, you're the psychiatrist among us, so you can call away all you want. Hold on a sec, will I ask AI?
Would anyone listen to me? So describe the scenario that could emerge if parents as the primary educators fail to continuously upskill and adapt so that they understand fully the role and potential of AI in the education of their children and even in the parenting of the child that's sitting at the dinner table in the evening.
Okay. I will give you the worst scenario. Dolly the sheep didn't need parents.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is AI Singularity rewrites AI, decides that humanity is basically flawed, and it basically takes what it needs from humanity to recreate whatever it does in the human species. It can do so like Dolly the sheep and gets rid of anything that's flawed in humanity and recreates its own species, which is through all the implants and all the singularity of all the neural X, Y, and Z, that creates the perfect utopia. Case closed, Your Honour.
So I'm bringing you back to where I started out from, the implications and considerations. Enhanced responsibility, ethical navigation, adaptive parenting, identity preservation. So my message to our listeners is wake up and smell the roses, get involved there, and don't end up waking up too late to something you don't recognize, i.e. translated through your very own children sitting in front of you in your kitchen.
Educate yourself right now.
Absolutely. Be
out there and be in control and know what you are talking about, in the sense that you love. You are probably a brother or a sister. You're probably an aunt or an uncle. You could be a mammy or a daddy. You could be anything from LGBTQIA. And we're talking directly to you to say this. You're a very beautiful human being. You have something that's incredibly special. I can give you 10 reasons how AI could never replace you.
Mm-hmm.
But the important thing I would say is this. Unless you stay in touch with who you really are and you know exactly what's coming down the road, then you might as well just go into that room with the stampede of elephants and go surrender. And why? Because those 10 reasons tell me one thing right now, that AI has the capacity to be beautifully, incredibly, wonderfully revolutionary in a way that humanity needs to go forward. In that sense of beautiful humanity, singularity, human AIology, or it can actually be your worst nightmare. And if we do not educate ourselves, then the fact is, well, maybe you're right. Your Gen Z said it will not happen in their lifetime. Well, I can tell you one thing. It won't happen in my lifetime, but maybe from another, as I'm going to do Nancy Griffith, from a distance. We'll be watching you doing this and we'll be going, we told you so. So to end this particular blog, I would say this. Let us not forget
the handshake.
The handshake.
And the importance of it.
Absolutely. And if we're going to break this, then understand that we break it. Do not blame the AI, and just know the best laptop in the world is your laptop. Mm-hmm. And the best literacy in the world is you being with that whoever it is that you're parenting, even if it's down to the cat with the kitten, to understand that you have the beauty of love, of humanity.
And you're modeling your humanity. And yeah, absolutely. So I would say to our listeners, please get in touch. Please come on board. Please give us another perspective if you feel that we're missing the point. Please come on board. Get in touch with Daithí or Teresa THC Consult, and I'll include you in the next debate. Thank you, and thank you, Daithí.
Slán go fóill.
Slán.